Story 1. You know those days when everything seems to be going just right, and then suddenly someone comes along and tries to ruin it. Well, that was my Tuesday last week. I've been a pharmacist at Community Care Pharmacy for almost 7 years now. It's a decent-sized pharmacy in a strip mall, not too big but busy enough to keep me and my 2 technicians on our toes most days. We serve a pretty diverse community: elderly folks from the retirement community down the road, young families from the nearby apartment complex, and everything in between. What most people don't realize about being a pharmacist is that we're not just pill counters. We're the last line of defense between patients and potentially dangerous drug interactions. We catch prescribing errors. We make sure people understand how to take their medications properly. And we have to follow strict regulations, especially when it comes to controlled substances. I've dealt with my fair share of difficult customers over the years. People get upset when their insurance won't cover something, or when we need to call their doctor for a refill authorization, or when we don't have their medication in stock. I get it when you're sick or in pain. Waiting even one more day for relief feels impossible. I try to be compassionate while still following the rules that keep everyone safe. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened that Tuesday afternoon. It was around 2:30 p.m., that weird lull between the lunch rush and the after-work crowd. My senior technician was on lunch break, and the junior technician was restocking shelves. I was catching up on some paperwork when I heard the bell above the door jingle, followed by the click-clack of heels approaching the counter at an alarming pace. I looked up to see a woman in her 40s, dressed in a business suit that probably cost more than my weekly salary, her face already flushed with irritation. Before I could even offer a greeting, she slammed her designer purse on the counter. "Woman, I need to pick up my mother's pain medication right now." Her voice was loud enough that the few customers browsing the aisles all turned to look. I kept my professional smile in place as I reached for the computer keyboard. "Me, I'd be happy to help you with that. Can I have your mother's name and date of birth, please?" "Woman, her name is—" she mentioned a name. "I don't know her birthday, but she's 78 and she needs her Percocet. She just had hip surgery and she's in terrible pain." Red flags were already going up in my mind. Percocet is an opioid medication. We can't just hand it over to anyone who walks in claiming to be a family member. But I kept my tone even as I typed in the name. "Me, I see her prescription was filled yesterday. For controlled substances like Percocet, I'll need to see your ID and verify that you're authorized to pick up her medication." The woman stared at me like I just asked her to hand over her firstborn child. "Woman, excuse me? I'm her daughter. Why would I need authorization?" "Me, it's standard procedure for controlled substances. Do you have an ID with you?" "Woman, of course I have ID, but that's not the point. My mother is at home, suffering in pain, because her usual pharmacy didn't have her medication in stock. Do you know how many places I've had to call to find someone who could fill this prescription?" "Me, I understand your frustration, but I still need to see your ID, and your mother would have needed to call us herself or list you as an authorized person on her account." Her face was turning a deeper shade of red now. Behind her, I noticed a man in casual clothes waiting in line, watching the interaction with interest. "Woman, this is ridiculous. I'm a very busy person. I took time out of my extremely busy day to help my mother. And this is how you treat me? By creating obstacles." "Me, ma'am, I'm not creating obstacles. These are federal regulations for dispensing controlled substances. I could lose my license if I don't follow them." "Woman, oh please? I bet you make exceptions all the time for people you like. I want to speak to your manager." I took a deep breath before responding. "Me, I am the pharmacist in charge today. These aren't store policies, they're federal laws. I cannot dispense a controlled substance to someone without proper authorization. Your mother would need to call us or come in herself." The woman's eyes narrowed, and she leaned across the counter, lowering her voice to a harsh whisper. "Woman, listen to me. My mother is 78 years old and in excruciating pain. She can barely move, let alone drive here. What kind of heartless person denies medication to an elderly woman in pain? Me. I'm very sorry about your mother's situation. If she calls us, we can discuss delivery options or other solutions. But I legally cannot give you her Percocet without proper authorization. That's when she lost it entirely. Woman, you people, you healthcare workers are always talking about compassion and caring. But when someone actually needs help, you hide behind your precious rules. What happened to the oath you took to help people? My mother is suffering. Her voice had risen to a screech, and now everyone in the store was staring. My junior technician had stopped restocking and was hovering nearby, looking uncertain about whether to intervene. Ma'am, I understand you're upset, but I need you to lower your voice. There are other customers. Woman, I don't care about other customers. I care about my mother who needs her medication now. She was practically shouting at this point, and I noticed the man behind her in line take a small step forward, his posture straightening slightly. That's when she did something I never expected. She leaned over the counter, scanning the filled prescription bags waiting in the pickup area. Before I could react, she grabbed one of the white bags. Woman, this must be it. It has today's date on it. I immediately came around the counter, my heart racing. Stealing someone else's prescription was a serious crime, and that particular bag contained a different controlled substance for another patient. Ma'am, put that down immediately. That is not your mother's medication, and taking it would be theft. Woman, oh, stop being so dramatic. If you won't help me, I'll help myself. That's when the man who'd been waiting in line stepped forward. He was average height, with a build that suggested he spent some time at the gym, and he had a calm but authoritative presence. Ma'am, I'm an off-duty police officer, and that's my prescription you're holding. I strongly suggest you put it back right now. The woman froze for a second, clutching the bag to her chest. Then her expression hardened again. Woman, you're lying. You're probably just another employee here trying to intimidate me. The man sighed and pulled out his wallet, flipping it open to reveal a badge. Man, I'm detective. He mentioned his position with the county police department. That bag contains my prescription, which I was about to pick up. What you're doing right now is attempting to steal a controlled substance, which is a felony offense. The woman's face went from red to pale in an instant, but remarkably, she didn't back down. Woman, this is ridiculous. I'm just trying to help my sick mother. You're all conspiring against me. The officer's voice remained calm, but took on an edge of finality. Ma'am, I'm going to ask you one more time to put the prescription back on the counter and step away. Otherwise, I will place you under arrest. Woman, you can't arrest me for trying to pick up medication for my mother. This is America. I know my rights. Officer, actually, I can. Attempting to take possession of a controlled substance that was not prescribed to you is a Class D felony in this state. Last chance, put the bag down. For a moment, the entire pharmacy was silent. I could practically see the wheels turning in the woman's head as she weighed her options. Then, with a dramatic huff, she threw the bag back onto the counter. Woman, fine, take your stupid pills. I'll just go to another pharmacy where they actually care about helping people. She turned to storm out, but the officer placed a hand on her shoulder. Officer, I'm afraid it's not that simple now. You attempted to steal a controlled substance, which is a serious crime. I'm placing you under arrest. Her eyes widened in genuine shock. Woman, you can't be serious. I put it back. Officer, that doesn't undo the attempt. Please turn around and place your hands behind your back. Woman, this is outrageous. Do you know who I am? My husband is a very important businessman. He plays golf with the mayor. The officer didn't seem impressed as he took out a pair of handcuffs. Officer, ma'am, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. As he continued reading her rights, the woman's face cycled through shock, outrage, and finally, a dawning horror as she realized the seriousness of the situation. The other customers were watching with a mixture of discomfort and, I hate to admit it, a certain satisfaction at seeing someone who had been causing such a scene face consequences. The officer used his radio to call for a patrol car, and within minutes, a uniformed officer arrived to take the woman away. As they let her out, she was still protesting loudly about her mother's pain and how everyone in the pharmacy should be ashamed of themselves. After they left, the pharmacy was oddly quiet. The off-duty detective approached the counter again, this time with a much friendlier expression. "Officer, sorry about that. Could I get my prescription now?" "Me, of course. Thank you for stepping in. That could have gotten much worse." "Officer, just doing my job, even on my day off." People don't realize how serious prescription fraud and theft are. We've seen a big uptick in cases lately. As I processed his prescription, I couldn't help but ask, "Me, do you think she really has a mother who needs pain medication?" The officer shrugged. "Officer, hard to say. Some people do start with legitimate needs and then take increasingly desperate measures. Others are just looking for drugs to sell or use themselves. Either way, there are proper channels to go through." After he left, my senior technician returned from lunch, shocked to hear what she'd missed. We spent the rest of the afternoon fielding questions from curious customers and filling out an incident report. 2 days later, I received a call from an elderly woman who apologized profusely for her daughter's behavior. She explained that her daughter had a history of prescription drug abuse and had been stealing her mother's medications for years. The incident at our pharmacy was apparently the wake-up call the family needed to get her into treatment. Sometimes I think about that woman and hope she's getting the help she needs. But I also think about how many times I've been pressured to bend the rules just this once for someone who seemed desperate. Those rules exist for a reason, and that day showed me how important it is to stand firm, even when it's uncomfortable. In 7 years as a pharmacist, that was definitely my most dramatic day on the job, but I'm proud that I stood my ground and protected not just my license, but potentially someone's life. After all, that's what being a pharmacist is really about. Story 2. I'm a single mom to my amazing 8-year-old son. 3 years ago, he was diagnosed with a rare form of muscular dystrophy that affects his ability to walk. It progressed pretty quickly, and within a year, he needed a wheelchair full-time. It was devastating at first. Watching your child lose mobility isn't something any parent is prepared for, but we've adapted. My son has the most incredible spirit. He never complains, always has a smile, and finds joy in the simplest things. His favorite place in the world is Oak Ridge Park. It's the only park in our area with accessible playground equipment and smooth paths that make it easy for him to navigate in his wheelchair. We try to go at least once a week, usually on Sundays when I'm off work. He loves feeding the ducks at the pond and using the adapted swing set they installed last year. Last Sunday seemed like any other park day. The weather was perfect sunny, but not too hot, and my son was especially excited because we hadn't been able to go for the past 2 weekends due to my work schedule changing. I helped him into his wheelchair, packed our lunch, and off we went. The park was busier than usual, probably because of the nice weather. We found a spot near the duck pond, and I set up our little picnic while my son watched the ducks swim around. He was laughing at a duckling that kept trying to climb onto its mother's back. My son, "Mom, can I have some bread for the ducks?" Me, "Sorry, sweetie. Remember what the sign says. Bread isn't good for ducks. I brought some oats though." My son, "Oh yeah, I forgot." I handed him the container of oats, and he started carefully tossing small handfuls toward the water's edge. A couple of other families were nearby doing the same thing. Everyone was having a nice, peaceful time. That's when I first noticed her. A woman probably in her 40s, wearing expensive-looking workout clothes and oversized sunglasses. She was taking selfies on the bridge over the pond, posing with different angles and expressions. Nothing wrong with that, of course. People take pictures at the park all the time. After about 15 minutes, my son wanted to try the accessible swing. I packed up our stuff, and we headed to the playground area. I had just helped transfer him from his wheelchair to the special swing when I heard someone clear their throat loudly behind me. It was the selfie woman. Up close, I could see her perfectly highlighted hair and manicured nails. She had that look that screamed, "I want to speak to the manager." Excuse me. Her tone was already annoyed, like I'd done something to personally offend her. I turned around, thinking maybe we had accidentally left something in her way. Yes, can I help you? You need to move that. She pointed at my son's wheelchair, which I had parked right next to the swing. I'm sorry. The wheelchair. It needs to be moved. It's ruining the aesthetic. I thought I must have misheard her. I looked around, wondering if this was some kind of prank. The aesthetic? Yes. I'm trying to take pictures for my social media. I'm an influencer. This is a popular spot, and that thing is making the background look medical. Can you put it somewhere else? I was so shocked I couldn't speak for a moment. My son had stopped swinging and was listening to the conversation, his face showing confusion. That thing is my son's wheelchair. He needs it, and it stays with him. Well, he's not in it right now, is he? Just move it behind that tree or something until I'm done with my photoshoot. No, I'm not moving it. Her face turned red, and she put her hands on her hips. Do you have any idea how many followers I have? This park is public property. I have just as much right to enjoy it without having hospital equipment in my photos. My son, Mom, what's wrong? Nothing. Honey, keep swinging. I'll push you. I turned my back to the woman and started pushing my son on the swing again. I could feel her glaring at me, but I ignored her. Unfortunately, she wasn't done. This is ridiculous. I'm going to find someone who can deal with this. She stormed off, and I hoped that was the end of it. My son asked who she was and what she wanted. I just told him some people aren't very patient, and we should feel sorry for them. We continued enjoying the swings for about 10 minutes. Then I saw the woman returning with a park maintenance worker. He was a middle-aged man in a green uniform, looking confused as she dramatically gestured toward us. There, see? Someone left that medical equipment just sitting there. It's abandoned junk and needs to be removed immediately. The maintenance worker looked at the wheelchair, then at my son on the swing, then back at the woman with a bewildered expression. Maintenance worker, ma'am, that's clearly not abandoned. There's a child using the accessible swing right there. Well, it's in the way of my photoshoot. Can't you at least move it temporarily? The maintenance worker looked at her for a long moment, then burst out laughing. It wasn't a small chuckle, it was a full, loud laugh that made several people turn to look. Maintenance worker, let me get this straight. You want me to take away a disabled child's wheelchair because it's ruining your Instagram photos? It's not funny. I have a business to run. My followers expect quality content. Maintenance worker, lady, I don't care if you're the Queen of England. I'm not touching that wheelchair, and frankly, I think you should be ashamed of yourself. How dare you speak to me like that? I'm going to report you to park management. What's your employee number? The maintenance worker just shook his head, still chuckling, and pointed to his name badge. Maintenance worker, go right ahead. Tell them exactly why you're complaining. I'd love to hear how that conversation goes. By this point, several parents had stopped to watch the scene unfold. One mom, who had been sitting on a bench nearby with her 2 kids, had her phone out and was recording the whole thing. I hadn't noticed at first, but later she would tell me she started filming as soon as the woman came back with the maintenance worker. The woman noticed people staring and whispering. Her face turned even redder, and she looked around nervously. Fine. I'll find another spot. This park is going downhill anyway, letting all kinds of people in. As she turned to leave, another parent who had been watching stepped forward. He was a tall man with a kind face. Parent, what exactly do you mean by all kinds of people? I didn't mean. Whatever. This park used to be nice. Parent, it still is nice. Especially because it's accessible to everyone. Maybe you should find a private studio for your photos, if public places with diverse people bother you so much. Other parents around us nodded in agreement. The woman looked around, seemingly realizing for the first time how many people had witnessed her behavior. Without another word, she grabbed her designer bag and stormed off toward the parking lot. The maintenance worker came over to us. Maintenance worker, I'm really sorry about that. Folks, is your son okay? Me, yes, thank you. We're fine. Maintenance worker, good. Some people, I swear. In 15 years working here, that might be the craziest thing anyone's asked me to do. After he left, the mother who had been recording approached me. Recording mother, hi, I hope you don't mind, but I got that whole interaction on video. That woman's behavior was absolutely disgusting. Me, no, I don't mind. Recording mother, I'd like to post it, if that's okay with you. People should see this kind of discrimination. I'll blur your son's face, of course. I thought about it for a moment. Normally, I'm a private person and wouldn't want our day at the park shared online. But something about the entitlement of that woman made me feel like maybe others should see what happened. Me, yes, you can post it. Maybe it will make someone think twice before acting like that. We exchanged contact information, and my son and I finished our day at the park. He went down the accessible slide a few times, and we had ice cream from the park vendor. I tried not to let the incident ruin our day, but it was hard not to think about it. That evening, the mother who recorded the video texted me a link. She had posted it on social media with a caption, entitled "Influencer tries to have disabled child's wheelchair removed from park because it ruins the aesthetic." Park workers' reaction is priceless. By the next morning, the video had thousands of shares. People were outraged, calling the woman all sorts of names in the comments. Someone recognized her as a local real estate agent who often posted about luxury properties and her exclusive lifestyle. Within 2 days, the video had spread to local news sites. I received messages from other parents of disabled children thanking me for standing my ground. The park management reached out to express their support and asked if we wanted to be part of a campaign they were planning about accessibility in public spaces. The cherry on top came 3 days after the incident. The recording mother sent me another message with a screenshot. The woman's real estate agency had posted a statement on their social media. We at Premier Properties have been made aware of a video involving one of our agents that does not reflect our company's values of inclusivity and respect. We have investigated the matter and have decided to terminate our relationship with this individual, effective immediately. We sincerely apologize to the family involved and the community. I showed my son none of this, of course. He's too young to understand the ugliness of discrimination or the concept of going viral. To him, it was just a day at the park with one rude lady. But I hope someday, when he's older and faces challenges because of his disability, I can tell him this story as an example of how most people will stand up for what's right when they see injustice. As for the woman, I almost feel sorry for her. Almost. Losing her job and being publicly shamed seems like a harsh consequence for one bad day. But then I remember her face when she called my son's wheelchair medical equipment that ruined her photos, and I think maybe it's exactly what she deserved. Some lessons are learned the hard way. We still go to the park every Sunday. The maintenance worker always waves when he sees us now. And sometimes, people recognize us from the video and come over to say hello. My son thinks he's made a bunch of new friends, and in a way, I guess he has. It's not how I would have chosen for it to happen, but there's something reassuring about knowing that for every entitled person in the world, there are dozens more ready to stand up against them. Story 3. I've been working at this family-owned Italian restaurant for about 5 years now. It's a nice place in a decent part of town. Nothing too fancy, but the food is authentic and delicious. The owners are an older couple who immigrated here 30 years ago and built this business from scratch. They've always treated their staff like family, which is why I've stuck around despite having finished my degree in business management 2 years ago. I could have gone corporate right away, but something about the warmth of this place kept me here. Plus, the owners had been talking about letting me take on more managerial responsibilities, which seemed like good practical experience. Little did I know that my business education combined with my years of customer service experience would come in handy for dealing with scammers. It was a Tuesday afternoon, usually one of our slower times. I had just been promoted to assistant manager the week before, and the owners were taking their first vacation in years, leaving me in charge. Talk about a trial by fire. Most of our lunch crowd had cleared out, and we were in that lull between lunch and dinner. Only 3 tables were occupied, a couple of regulars at the corner booth, a businessman on his laptop, and a table of college students sharing a couple of pizzas. That's when she walked in. She was maybe in her mid-40s, wearing designer sunglasses pushed up on her heavily highlighted hair, carrying an oversized purse that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Something about her seemed off from the start. She scanned the restaurant with this calculating look, then loudly cleared her throat when our host didn't immediately notice her. Host: "Hello ma'am, welcome to Bella Not. Table for 1. She didn't even respond, just gave a curt nod, and followed the host to a table near the center of the restaurant. I was behind the bar, organizing receipts, but I kept an eye on her. Working in restaurants this long, you develop a sixth sense for trouble. The server approached her table with a warm smile. Server: "Good afternoon. Can I start you off with something to drink?" The woman barely looked up from her phone. Woman: "Iced tea, no sugar, and make it quick." "No please, no thank you. Just demands." The server nodded politely and went to get her drink. When he returned with her iced tea, she took 1 sip and frowned. Woman: "This tastes awful. Bring me a different one." Server: "I'm so sorry about that. I'll bring you a fresh one right away. Would you like to try something else instead?" Woman: "Just bring me water, and I'm ready to order." She proceeded to ask detailed questions about every item on the menu, complaining about prices and ingredients. The server maintained his professionalism, answering each question patiently. Finally, she ordered our most expensive pasta dish with several modifications. I continued watching her from the corner of my eye while handling other tasks. Something definitely felt off. She seemed to be looking around constantly, checking who was watching her, noting where staff members were positioned. At one point, she took out her phone and appeared to be recording or taking photos of the restaurant layout. When her food arrived, she took a single bite, then pushed it away with a dramatic sigh. Our server rushed over. Server: "Is everything all right with your meal?" Woman: "This is completely undercooked. I can't eat this." The pasta was perfectly al dente. I had checked it myself before it went out, knowing this table might be trouble. Server: "I'm very sorry to hear that. Would you like me to take it back to the kitchen and have them cook it a bit more?" Woman: "No, just bring me the check. This place is disappointing." The server nodded and went to print her check, and that's when things got interesting. While the server was at the computer terminal, I noticed the woman looking around again. Then, very deliberately, she took her nearly full water glass and slowly tipped it over, spilling water across the floor beside her table. She glanced around again to make sure no one had seen. At this point, I pretended to be busy with paperwork, but was watching her every move. The security cameras were also capturing everything, a system the owners had installed last year after a string of dine and dashes. The server returned with her check, placing it on the table. Server: "Again, I'm sorry about your experience today." The woman nodded dismissively and reached for her purse. Then, in a move so calculated it was almost comical, she pushed her chair back and stood up directly into the puddle she had created. What happened next was like watching bad community theater. She let out a shriek that made every head in the restaurant turn. Then she dramatically flailed her arms and fell backward, landing on her bottom rather gently, definitely not the fall of someone who had actually slipped. Woman: "Oh my God, I've fallen. I'm hurt. Who left this water here?" She continued wailing as the server and host rushed over to help. I grabbed our first aid kit and approached calmly, having seen exactly what happened. Me, ma'am, are you all right? Do you need medical assistance? Woman, I slipped on this water. Who's responsible for this? My back, my hip. I could be seriously injured. I need a doctor. By now, she was creating such a scene that the few customers in the restaurant were staring openly. The college students had their phones out, likely recording the commotion. Me, I'd be happy to call an ambulance if you feel you need medical attention. Her eyes narrowed slightly at this suggestion. Woman, no ambulance. But I need compensation for this. This is completely unacceptable. I demand to speak to a manager immediately. I smiled politely. Me, I'm the manager on duty today. How can I help resolve this situation? Woman, well, manager, your restaurant is responsible for my injury. At minimum, my meal should be comped, and I'll need cash for a taxi home since I'm in no condition to drive now, and I'll need your insurance information and the owner's contact details for my lawyer. That's when I knew for certain this was a scam. She had gone from dramatic injury to negotiating compensation in record time, with no interest in actual medical attention. Me, I understand your concern, ma'am. However, before we discuss compensation, I should inform you that we have security cameras throughout the restaurant for everyone's safety. I gestured toward the clearly visible camera in the corner that had a perfect view of her table. Me, they capture everything that happens in the dining area. Standard procedure for any incident is to review the footage first. Would you like to see the recording of your fall? Her face went through a fascinating transformation: shock, then anger, then a forced look of indignation. Woman, are you accusing me of something? I don't need to see any video. I know what happened. I slipped on water that your staff negligently left on the floor. Me, I'm not accusing you of anything, ma'am. I'm simply following our protocol for incidents. If you'll follow me to the office, we can review the footage together before filing any reports. Woman, this is outrageous. I don't have time for this. I know my rights. She stood up suddenly, apparently forgetting about her severe injuries, and grabbed her purse. Woman, you'll be hearing from my lawyer. This establishment is a disgrace. She stormed toward the exit, walking perfectly fine despite claiming to be injured moments before. And then, in what I can only describe as perfect karmic timing, she actually did slip on the puddle she had created, which now extended closer to the exit from all the commotion. This time, it was a genuine fall. Her feet went out from under her, and she landed hard on her back with a thud that made everyone wince. Her purse flew open, scattering its contents across the floor, including several business cards for personal injury lawyers. The restaurant went silent for a moment. Then one of the college students whispered, "Holy shit, did that just happen?" Unlike her fake fall, she didn't immediately jump up from this one. She lay there for a moment, clearly stunned and in actual pain. I rushed over, genuinely concerned despite knowing her intentions. Me, ma'am, are you all right? Should I call an ambulance now? Her face was red with both pain and embarrassment as she struggled to sit up. Woman, don't touch me. This is your fault. All of you will be sued. She gathered her belongings, refusing any help, and limped out of the restaurant, still threatening legal action. As the door closed behind her, I turned to see every customer staring in amazement. Businessman at laptop, what the hell was that about? Me, unfortunately, it appears to have been an attempted scam. One of the college students approached me, phone in hand. College student, I got the whole thing on video, including her pouring the water and pretending to fall. Do you want me to send it to you? Might help if she actually tries to sue. I thanked them and gave them my email address. The server who had been dealing with her looked shaken. Server, was she really trying to scam us? Why would someone do that? Me, some people see small businesses as easy targets. They think we'll pay them off rather than deal with the hassle of fighting a claim. That's why the owners installed the cameras. I spent the next hour filing an incident report and downloading the security footage, just in case. I also called the owners to let them know what had happened. They were concerned but relieved that I had handled it and that we had the footage. A week passed without incident, and I thought the matter was closed. Then we received a letter from a lawyer claiming his client had suffered significant injuries due to negligence at our restaurant and demanding a settlement. I forwarded the letter to our insurance company along with both the security footage and the video from the college student. 2 days later, I discovered that the college student had also posted the video online, where it had gone viral. Local news stations picked up the story. Woman caught on camera faking fall in restaurant actually falls for real. The comments were merciless. The woman's lawyer withdrew the claim almost immediately, but the story doesn't end there. About a month later, I received notice that we were required to appear in small claims court. Despite the viral video and withdrawal of her initial claim, she was still pursuing legal action, now claiming defamation due to the viral video. On the day of the court appearance, I arrived with our lawyer, the security footage, and statements from witnesses. The woman was there with a neck brace she definitely hadn't been wearing during the incident. When the judge reviewed all the evidence, especially the security footage clearly showing her deliberately spilling the water and faking the fall, followed by her very real fall while storming out, he didn't even try to hide his irritation. Judge, ma'am, not only is your claim without merit, but I find your actions to be a blatant attempt to defraud this establishment. Case dismissed. He then advised her that she was fortunate the restaurant wasn't countersuing for legal fees and filing a false claim. The entitled woman left the courtroom in a huff, still insisting she was the victim. As for me, the owners were so impressed with how I handled the situation that they fast-tracked my promotion to full manager with a raise. We also saw an uptick in business after the video went viral. Turns out, people appreciate establishments that don't give in to scammers. Now, whenever I interview new servers, I use this story as a teaching moment. Always be professional, always be observant, and thank goodness for security cameras.